Hi, welcome to the Times of Israel's daily briefing. It is Wednesday, November 12th, and I'm Jessica Steinberg. Before we begin today, I just want to mention something that we're offering at TOI, a series of Israeli documentary films that you can watch from home with English subtitles. After each film, you can ask questions directly to the filmmakers in the exclusive Q&R webinars that we host. It's called DocuNation, and it's available to members of our reader support group, the Times of Israel community. For more info, just go to timesofisrael.com/films. That's timesofisrael.com/films. I'm speaking today with political correspondent Sam Sokol and tech editor Sharon Wrobel. Hi to you both. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is day 768 of the war. White House advisor Jared Kushner and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are still speaking here in Jerusalem and seeking a solution regarding the 100 or so Hamas terrorists that are still in Rafah tunnels in Gaza on Israel's side of the yellow ceasefire line. That's been an issue that's been dealt with for several days, and a solution has not been found. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer officially resigned from his ministerial role. And in his resignation letter, he lauded the prime minister and the government for its response to October 7th. Today, we will discuss the prime minister's still continual rejection of opposition calls to establish a state commission of inquiry into the failures of October 7th, and that created October 7th. We will also talk about a controversial bill to impose the death penalty on terrorists who have killed Israelis. And on the business side of things, we will discuss lab-made milk coming to the Israeli market and shelves, and how the Zoran Mamdani win, the mayoral win in New York City, is rattling the Israeli business community there in Manhattan. Stay with us.
I always say, if there's one thing we need to do really well, it's delight the customer. Our goal is for everything we do to quietly fade into the background so the customer simply thinks, wow, that was really easy. What's made this journey so meaningful is the ongoing challenge of delivering personal connection and thoughtful, tailored service in a virtual world. And especially now, that connection feels more important than ever. We're one nation, one family. When we heard about Hayalim getting engaged and planning quick weddings, we knew we wanted to help, so we gifted them beautiful ketubas, a small but heartfelt thank you for their courage, their protection, and all they're doing for Am Yisrael. We hear it all the time. People are saying, this is the best company I've ever worked with. And honestly, that comes down to one thing, the care each team member puts into every single order.
Okay, Sam, let's talk about this latest gathering in the Knesset, in the plenum, the continual calls, again, from the opposition, demanding that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu establish a state commission of inquiry into the failures that brought about October 7th. Tell us about that gathering in the plenum. Is it any different than the ones that have been happening really for the last nearly 2 years?
Not particularly. I think it's important to note for our listeners who aren't familiar, a state commission of inquiry is the highest level of state probe that can be approved. It has the power to subpoena witnesses and documents, and it's the standard type of probe that is launched in cases of national disaster. There was a state commission of inquiry launched after the Meron tragedy when 45 people were trampled to death during a pilgrimage in northern Israel. There's an ongoing state commission of inquiry into the submarine affair, an investigation into allegations of corruption in the purchase of Navy submarines from abroad. And these types of probes have been used after previous wars. So it's very much a standard operating procedure. Now, Netanyahu has consistently declined to take responsibility for October 7th, and he has consistently declined to allow the formation of a state commission of inquiry. The arguments made by Netanyahu and his partisans have essentially been that because the composition of the commission is determined by a Supreme Court justice, the commission itself would be biased and its conclusions would not be accepted by many Israelis. Now, this is a point that he emphasized again on on Monday, I should say. On Monday, Netanyahu was summoned to the Knesset as part of a so-called 40 signatures debate. It's a debate that can be called once a month by the opposition, by collecting 40 signatures, and which requires the prime minister to attend and answer questions regarding a specified issue. And during this debate, Netanyahu said that a probe is needed, but it has to be something based on really wide consensus. And he rejected the idea of a commission which would be rejected by, quote, at least half the country, is how he put it. This despite the fact that polls have consistently shown that a clear majority of Israelis, including members of his own coalition and supporters of his own Likud party, do support a state commission of inquiry. Now, previous state commissions of inquiry have not been kind to Netanyahu. The Meron commission did say that he bore responsibility, among other officials, for the disaster. The submarine probe, while it is still not completed, the members of the probe did send a letter to Netanyahu saying that, it's not looking good for him. So Netanyahu has some definite concerns for himself politically regarding the results of such a probe. He cited the example of the 9/11 Commission in the United States after the September 11th attacks, which was composed of both Republicans and Democrats, as the model he wants to follow. But the critics of this policy across the spectrum have essentially argued that what Netanyahu wants to do is to create a political probe whose membership he could control and whose conclusions he could blunt. Responding to Netanyahu, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who is going to be running against Netanyahu in the upcoming Knesset elections, said that the first thing that he would do after becoming Prime Minister, if he becomes Prime Minister, would be to cancel any political probes that Netanyahu may put in place. I believe he called them circuses, was the term he used. And to say, we're going to cancel that and immediately put in a state commission of inquiry. Just keeping in mind that people within Netanyahu's own Likud have argued in favor of this. One of the reasons why Netanyahu had so much tension with his former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, whom he eventually fired, was because of Gallant's repeated calls publicly to institute such a probe into the prime minister and his government, a probe which would have also, likely implicated or at least investigated Gallant himself.
Right. Of course, and I'll just mention, as I cover the funerals of the hostage bodies that have been returned, it is a call that you don't hear at every funeral, but at many of them, including, I'm thinking about Itai Chen, the fallen soldier. His father made a very harsh comment in his eulogy for his son, demanding a state commission of inquiry into the failures of October 7th. Okay, Sam, let's move to another topic that you've covered over the last couple of days, a very controversial bill coming from the much more extremist ends of Netanyahu's government coalition to impose the death penalty on terrorists who have killed Israelis. It's not the first time we've heard about this, but this is a process that is now, at least for the moment, moving forward. So tell us about that.
Well, this is a policy that was part of the coalition agreement between National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir's far-right Otzma Yehudit party and Netanyahu's Likud. It's been a demand of Otzma Yehudit since the beginning. The argument is that by applying the death penalty to people who engage in terrorist acts, there will be less of an incentive to kidnap Israelis or to demand the release of security prisoners in exchange for captured Israelis. So this has been the argument in favor. Now, Netanyahu has resisted advancing this legislation for a very long time. The counter-argument from the coalition side, leaving aside the arguments over the propriety of the death penalty as a policy itself, but the argument within the coalition had been that while the hostages are being held in Gaza, imposing a death penalty on terrorists would endanger their safety. And so what we recently saw was, after the release of the last living hostages, after the ceasefire hostage deal began to be implemented, Ben Gvir gave Netanyahu an ultimatum. You have 3 weeks to advance this legislation to its first reading in the Knesset plenum, the first of 3 readings necessary to get passed into law, or we will stop voting with the coalition. Now, Ben Gvir has a lot of credibility with these kinds of threats. He has bucked coalition discipline many times in the past. He has voted against the coalition in the past. He even quit the coalition for several months to protest an earlier ceasefire deal, only returning when Israel returned to fighting in Gaza. So this was not an empty threat. And Netanyahu, now that the hostages were gone, backed the bill and backed its advancement. And now, again, leaving aside the propriety of the death penalty, the morality of the death penalty, should we do it? Should we not do it? Is it the right thing or the wrong thing? That's really an issue for ethicists and for security experts. But one thing that has been pointed out by experts that I spoke to is that the bill is unlikely to pass the high court test, because while the bill, which mandates the death penalty for terrorists in Israeli courts and makes it much easier to pass a death penalty in military courts in the West Bank, it doesn't apply to anyone engaging in terrorist activity. The bill states that it applies to those who kill Israelis due to, quote, racism and with, quote, the aim of harming the state of Israel and the revival of the Jewish people in its land, leading many critics to say that it would only apply to Arabs and not to Jewish terrorists, not to Jews who carry out mass deadly attacks against Palestinians.
Okay, so Sam, it's such a complex issue, obviously, and certainly in the politics of it. Where does it stand right now? Where do we stand right now with this?
Well, the bill has passed its first reading in the plenum and is now going to be referred to committee for further discussion and preparation for the second and third readings, which are usually held back to back. So at this point, the bill will advance through the Knesset. There has been some concern raised that, celebration on the behalf of its backers is premature. Oded Forer, a lawmaker for the hawkish opposition Yisrael Beitenu party, which supported the bill and actually sponsored its own identical bill, which was also advanced in the same session, has said that he is concerned that Netanyahu has blocked the advancement of this type of legislation in the past, and he hopes that it actually goes through this time.
All right. Thanks for that, Sam. We're going to take a quick break. When we're back, Sharon will take us through what it will look like as lab-made milk is coming onto the Israeli market, and Mamdani and New York's Israeli business community. So stay with us.
On October 7, I was here at the Nova Music Festival. I ran for my life, hid for 7 hours. Terrorists shot me twice. Thankfully, I survived. I'm still dealing with trauma, and I'm not alone. 3 million Israelis are in trauma. They need mental health care or physical rehabilitation. Wounded soldiers, families, and scared children.
Since 1912, Hadassah has been a life-changing force in Israel. Today, Hadassah has 2 world-renowned hospitals, pioneers breakthrough medical research, cares for youth, and has built the much-needed and largest rehabilitation facility in Jerusalem.
Thank you to everyone at Hadassah Hospitals. You've been helping me, and so many others. And a special thanks to one nurse, my mom. I love you.
So Sharon, you have been covering the development of lab-made milk for a while, but now it's actually coming to the Israeli market, as I understood from a piece that you wrote, to cafes, to supermarkets, where presumably people will be looking to buy it. Tell us, and that's of course with another issue that you've been covering, which is the shortage of milk in the Israeli market, but we're looking at lab-made milk today. So tell us what we're expecting to see here.
Right. So Remilk is a food tech startup. For the last couple of years, they've really worked to bring this type of non-animal, cow-free milk to the market. What's a bit different, just to explain, to plant-based milk, they really want to sort of recreate how we taste milk, how we use milk, but just not cow's milk. So how do they do this? They recreate the milk protein that is found in regular milk, but using sort of a yeast-based fermentation technology. So the milk is actually produced in fermentation tanks instead of in the cow, obviously. So we have seen a few other startups that have used similar technology. We've been asking is, when can we buy this off the shelf? And that has also taken Remilk more than 2 years now, since they actually have the regulatory nod from the health ministry. They got it more than 2 years ago. It still took them that time to actually roll out. They explained that they've worked very hard to make those three characteristics: the taste, the functionality, and the texture is sort of, this is how they branded already. They partnered with Gut Diaries, and they're really coming out with a bottle that looks similar to other milk bottles that you'll see in the aisles. Still, I have tried it. It does froth very well. I haven't frothed it myself, but you can cook with it. It's not sensitive to heat. You can really, appears that you can use it in a very similar way that you use milk. The big difference will be the price, obviously, to regular milk in terms of buying it. But of course, people who are sort of allergic, they have sensitivities. It is free of cholesterol, free of lactose. It says that it has 75% less sugar. So there are a number of, attributes that will speak to a lot of people, particularly those who also keep the kashrut dietary rules. I think that the test really will be the public, the consumer, if they like it, if they will buy it.
Right. Okay. Moving to a very different topic. Zohran Mamdani's win in New York City as the mayor of New York, which has really rattled parts of the Jewish community, parts of the Israeli community in New York, which is very considerable. And you spoke to people about how it's rattling the considerably sized Israeli business community in New York City. I mean, do we even have a sense of how big the Israeli business community is in New York? Did you get a sense of that?
Right. So yes, there are, I would say, more than 450 Israeli-founded startups now. Apparently, according to a recent survey, they've created almost 30,000 jobs. And now, especially during the last 2 years, during the war period, we saw actually a lot of young entrepreneurs and startups that are starting out to venture out. And they went to New York, preferably because also travel disruption have made New York a bit more reliable. Because, that was, if at all, the only direct flight you could get on from Tel Aviv, and even that was limited, right? So So that has also created a situation where where I'm hearing from a lot of investors and founders that they're actually moving much faster to expand their markets in the US, and New York was a pleasant place. Now, also you have to remember, people don't move just one person. It's not just a founder. They do move with families often. And one of the investors I spoke to, they said, almost the second question when they think about moving is, is this going to be a comfortable and attractive environment for me and my family, for me and my kids? Where will they go to school? Will they feel comfortable? So
Sure.
That just sets the background. Mamdani has had a history of sort of anti-Israel rhetoric. To be fair, he hasn't really come out with very direct declarations about being hostile to Israeli businesses, but he has, expressed, he's condemned Israel for going to war in Gaza. He has expressed concern about supporting technologies that are sold to Israel's security forces. And, one thing that's come out of this war is that most of the advanced technologies that are needed globally today do come out often from defense or military use, whether that is smart mobility, whether that is protecting cities, whether that is protecting online cyber attacks. And Israel has one of the most, has advanced technologies that are used by even the New York Police Department. We have a lot of, there are hubs in New York that developed through public-private partnerships with the city, with previous mayors that have been supportive. Right. There is also the Technion, the Israeli sort of superior, really, tech institute that has a partnership with Cornell. And I've been told that many of the startups that are setting up in New York, many of the founders there have met at this, campus. And in that sense, Mamdani has said that if he was elected, he would be reassessing the partnership because of the Technion's connections to the IDF, to technologies that are used or that came out of it. So there are signs that we're seeing that are worrying, not necessarily in the legislation, because that would be much harder, but in the sentiment, as there's, when we talk about a silent bias, we might, this is, I guess, what Israeli investors and startups are worrying, that if they apply to tenders of the city, if they want to renew their contracts with the city, or even any public institution, infrastructure, public transport, as I said, police departments, even government bodies that they're working with, there just needs to be a certain change to conditions of applying to these that can make a difference.
So I guess we're going to have to wait and see, as we keep on saying, about Mamdani and his administration and what it's going to look like. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Sam, for being with me on today's Daily Briefing.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
And thanks to you for listening to the Times Visuals Daily Briefing. Stay tuned for tomorrow's installment. This episode is produced by the Podwaves. Until next time, take care and be well. See you soon.